This tutorial covers using dictionaries with the CAM Editor. First, the obligatory disclaimer notice and safe harbor. The overview of the tutorial. First, we're going to look at the dictionary concepts, then look at the services and facilities that the CAM Editor toolkit provides for managing and creating dictionaries, and we'll look at some examples, walk through those of actually using dictionaries, and then provide the summary and review. So beginning with dictionary concepts and understanding the dictionary usage. The goal here is to provide you an overview of dictionaries rather than an in-depth tutorial. We have additional resources that we will introduce for the actual low-level details. So looking at the role and content generally of a dictionary, it's to manage and control data structures and component definitions for a particular purpose and community. And these are split down into core components which are used across information exchanges, and then context-specific components for a limited number of information exchanges. And then the actual naming and design rules, the NDR, specify how these components should be defined and utilized. And then we have this notion of the 8 Ds of software development. And so the areas that are specific for the dictionaries are develop, document, the dictionaries themselves, and of course component discovery. And this all fits into a traditional software development lifecycle. And the aim is to make this predictable, repeatable, reusable process. So if we look at this as in this view, you can see that the dictionaries are facilitating the green steps of the process of designing, discovering, developing, and documenting. And the idea is to have a drag and drop visual designer which you can use with the dictionaries to create the exchanges that you need, and then from those definitions in the dictionary you can generate all the other artifacts that you need to be able to actually deploy and produce working XML. So then the next aspect is the dictionary framework itself. And so you can see that there's a collection manager that allows you to utilize the particular dictionaries, and the drag and drop designer then uses the components that the collection manager provides. And once you have this loaded into the CAM editor, then you can actually build the exchange structure that you want, generate models, add additional rules, and so on. And the examples for this are at this link here, cameditor.org/dictionaries. So what we're going to look at is how to create dictionaries, and you can do this top-down directly from information models if you have those available, or your SQL tables, or bottom-up, harvesting them from existing data assets from XML exchange structures and schema, manually entering them through Excel spreadsheets. And the idea is to produce a neutral abstract standards-based representation of these dictionary components. So what that looks like is this content model, where you have the components of the dictionary, then you have the compound components parent level. Underneath those you have the child components that correspond to the parents, and then you can have attributes either on the parents or on the children or both that provide additional details about the specific component. So this is what this looks like structurally, and you can see that there's various acronyms being used here, and these terms are defined in the Core Components technical specification, which came out of the EBXML work. And so if we look at a simple example of this, you have person name is a parent level component called an ABIE. You can have an attribute on person name of verified details, an ASBIE, and then child elements of first name, middle name, last name, language code, and on last name you may put an additional attribute there to say, is this a previous is there a previous name associated with this last name? And so what's going on here is you're defining three component aspects: the structure relationships, the content rules, and the actual definitions. From a semantics perspective, what we're doing is creating this neutral formatted XML dictionary that contains the core information on the XML components. And we're using this subset of the Core Components technical specifications to represent that. And from this, we can generate what we need: schema, XMI for modeling, and more. Because basically we have the vocabulary terms, the definitions, the purpose, and the content models. And to assist with this, there's also a renamer tool which aligns with the NIEM and EIEM. I'm going to talk about that more in a moment. So the value proposition here is this allows business analysts to focus on the information exchange needs and build the data exchanges. It can align with industry standards, enterprise information stores, and the components themselves are derived from the existing domain schema and data structures, so you have that alignment. And this supports providing the sharing and collaboration services that you need. And it also allows you to develop supporting analytic tools. Again, we're going to look at those in a moment. So what sources can you use for your dictionary? So essentially you can ingest from a wide range. You can use XML schema, database schema, Excel spreadsheets, or enterprise data models. If you're starting from scratch, you would use an Excel spreadsheet, or use a SQL tool and enter your table, or use the CAM editor to create your XML components. Then you can generate dictionary components from any one of these sources. Or if you just simply want to download an existing domain dictionary collection, those are available too. So a wide ability to create dictionaries. So this renaming tool is designed to facilitate automation of getting names from existing sources into NIEM naming and design rule conformant names. So sources tend to heavily use abbreviations. The renamer has a large number of built-in government abbreviations that it knows. It knows how to correct common typos and spelling errors. It has over 200 of those. It adjusts names to make them XML camel case conformant. If you have acronyms, it'll retain those. It adds the appropriate name suffix to match the NIEM representation terms of date, number, code, etc., depending on the type of the content. And then you can refactor rules to change how they're being used, relaxing database length restrictions, making nillable items optional, and so on. Then you can also insert a namespace prefix if you want to use that. And all this can be configured through the wordsutil.xslt file, which is available from the SourceForge download site. The analytics tools you can use will compare to a dictionary. So this will provide reuse scoring statistics for your information exchange. So obviously if you've dragged and dropped everything out of your dictionary, into your new exchange, then you will get a very high reuse score. If you used a lot of new components in the exchange and very little from the dictionary, lower reuse, and so on. The template evaluation tool provides naming and design rule analysis, spell checking, interoperability analysis, data modeling checks on errors and warnings there, and then naming, use, inconsistencies, and omissions. And these are useful because particularly older sources of components may have not been designed with XML and so forth in mind, so these analytic tools can help find issues. And what all this is doing for you is providing this ability to use this pyramid approach, where you start with your XML components at the top level, query and navigate, select those, build your exchanges, and this gives you a domain of reusable libraries of components, not only the exchanges themselves, but the dictionaries. And then from there, using the tools, you can automatically render the components that you need to drive your middleware and your application solutions, creating schema, XML, documentation, and being able to deploy the components with rule engines and so on and so forth. So this is the overview here, and now we're going to talk about the actual dictionary services and the facilities that the tools themselves provide. Here you can see the overall view of dictionary management and acquisition. So we've laid this out in the different steps and types of components and so on. And essentially in the acquiring dictionary section here, you can see from a spreadsheet, from a schema, from SQL, using the renamer tool, using the evaluation tool. So we're going to focus in on that first. So in this diagram, we're showing the steps that are needed to create a dictionary from an existing schema, where you import the schema itself into the CAM Editor toolkit, create the template, apply the naming and design rule evaluation. Based off the results of that, you may make changes and updates and so on. Then once you've completed that, then you're ready to build the actual dictionary, use the tool for that, and that will then automatically create these canonical components for you. Similarly, if you have an enterprise data model using a tool such as Erwin, then you're going to export the components from the data model into schema, and then import those schema components into a CAM template, and once again run the evaluation and naming, design, refactoring, renaming tools as you need, and then generate your standard components. Now, these steps are described for Erwin in the resources that are available from the cameditor.org website. So you can go there, search on Erwin, and download that quick guide. Now, what this screen is showing you is the actual CAM editor itself with the database browser on the right hand side, and then on the left hand side the XML structure. And so what's happened here is we've used the drag and drop designer from the database browser, and it has automatically created the XML and applied the naming and design rule tool to rename these components to correct XML names from the original SQL names. And then from here you can simply generate the dictionary from these components. So we have additional tutorials that show you in detail this working, so we're just going to introduce the concepts here. And then similarly, for a dictionary from an Excel spreadsheet, the URL at the top here you can see points to the SourceForge project, where you can actually download an Excel pack, which is what you're looking at in the screen here, where it has the XML data mapping built into the spreadsheet. You can then enter the components that you want in this format here, where you have the parent, which is the source container, and then the element name of the actual component, and then the definition and the character type. And then use the export feature here to actually create this XML. And then from that XML, you can create the dictionary. And there's a README within the pack that has complete instructions. The renamer itself looks like this, and you can use it on a template directly. So if you've imported things from a different source, you haven't used the drag and drop that we just looked at on the previous slide, then here's the renamer that you will use manually, and all the different options that allow you to custom and tailor the behavior of the renamer. So once you've got your dictionaries built, then you would want to use the Collection Manager tool in the CAM Editor to actually build a collection for your dictionaries. So the idea here is you may have 2, 3, 4 dictionaries that you want to use, and with the drag and drop editor tool set, and this is how you set that up. So you basically create a dictionary collection file, give it a name, and then add in the dictionaries that you want to use and set it as the default collection. That way when you open the dictionary viewer in the editor, it will load the collection that you've specified here. Available dictionaries, once again you can go to the SourceForge project and you'll find a dictionary folder there. There's NIEM dictionaries, as you can see here, and then other additional dictionaries as well. So that concludes the process of actually creating dictionaries. Next we're going to look at examples of actually walking through and using these. So now we're going to have a look at some use cases to give you an idea of how you can utilize dictionaries once you've created them. So we've already mentioned that there's the visual designer that can take your dictionary collection, load it, and then allow you to interact with it, search for components, use the drag and drop tool, and build a completed exchange. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we have tutorials that show you working through that. The idea of developing domain dictionaries, this term EIEIM, Enterprise Information Exchange Model, has been coined and by the NIEM community. And so the idea is you can provide consistency for your project development teams. So you have these sets of components that are pre-built. This saves time and effort across the enterprise for the developers and answers a lot of questions for them, such as which components should I use when. They're already in the dictionary, just pick those, and so on. And because you can manage the collections and the dictionaries as well, these all fit into a formal software development process, Lifecycle, SDLC. And you can also provide these to external parties to sync up and provide consistent data views between different teams. An example of doing that is the N-DEx dictionary, which is again available for download. And you can see here on the left hand side the dictionary that we've built, and that's looking at it in the dictionary viewer of the CAM Editor tool. And this was actually harvested from a couple of schema, merged together, And on the right hand side, we're looking at a model of this in the FreeMind tool, which integrates into the CAM editor and gives you that ability to look at the model visually as well. So once you've got a collection, what can you do with it? Here you can see an example of building a suspicious activity report from 3 different sources. So you've used 1.5 version components, which you've harvested from an existing schema. You've used NIEM core dictionary definitions, and you've used LEX 314 dictionary components, which are all to do with messaging and message sending and receiving. So you have a blend here, as the diagram illustrates, of the different component sets, which have all just been built using the drag and drop. So that provides you with a quick introduction of the dictionary technology. Now we're just going to summarize and review. Opportunities and challenges. This can be somewhat of a paradigm shift for teams that are used to manually building schema and Java code in developer IDE tools. But clearly there's substantial advantages for being able to simply use drag and drop to build exchange definitions rapidly, then have the tool create the schema and the code that you need. And also providing collaboration between developers and data analysts, because the editor is providing this neutral representation here. It allows multiple sets of teams to work on these definitions. It's no longer just a prerogative of people that understand XML syntax at a low level. And therefore what we're doing is we're lowering the learning curve for application development teams overall. This can be integrated into your software development lifecycle and things like the NIEM PD process. You can also, as an advantage for the software developers, if they use all this tooling, then they can generate unit test XML. They can use the test framework and the validation services to validate what they're deploying into production. Work in progress is building a NIEM Lite, which is easier, simpler to use by adding context-aware mechanisms to automatically filter dictionary components based on domain use case. So NIEM today does not have context. So when you look at definitions in the dictionary, you see a huge array of components. So the idea is that that can be reduced, that information overload, by only showing you components that are relevant to the particular context that you need. And being able to expose those context lists so you can simply click and choose the ones you want. And dictionary analytic tools, at the moment the analytic tools are working on the templates, but you also want them to work against the dictionary components. So ahead of time you can refine and cross-check your dictionary components actually in situ rather than once they've been extracted out using the drag and drop. Another aspect of this storing and sharing and collaboration is being able to have an API to tools like the SOA Suite repository. So we're working on that too. So the value proposition overall that these contextual mechanisms is allowing the linear growth of true core components, not an exponential growth. When you don't have a context mechanism, people create more and more and more sets of the same components for the different contexts that they have, and so that is counterproductive. Basically trying to make this easier for practitioners to leverage for more predictable and repeatable results, lowering the learning curve and making the thing faster and easier to do, and enabling domain use horizontally across government. It's a big challenge. We're seeing we need tooling to help with that, and then existing extract, transform and load tools can take advantage of these dictionary definitions to automate mapping. If they know it's been mapped in this way in a certain application, then when they see those same components again, they can automatically apply those same mappings. I'm providing a collaborative environment for all of this work. So, just in conclusion, we have the cameditor.org project site. You can see the statistics here, the sort of usage that we're getting on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And so every aspect of what you've seen here being presented, you can go to the project site, search for, and download. Okay, thank you.